Good evening. It's Monday night. Yeah, we're back here on a Monday night. Brian Scoon alongside Ralph Leary and Will Manis. We're here with the Crowded Booth Alive Monday night edition. Guys, how was your long weekend? We'll give you a long weekend. Now, Ralph, I know you had to work today, but how was your weekend?
It was good. I went hunting for the first time this year because I actually got some time off to go hunting finally. Watched some football and
there you go.
Yeah, relaxed.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about some of that football today. Will, how about for you? How was the weekend that you all already had to work?
Yeah, I mean, I worked all weekend, so, nothing new or exciting there.
Yeah. Well, I think that if people didn't tune in, they should, to the pod released on Saturday, shared on Sunday. Great podcast. Talked a lot about the previewing of the NFL games. It was, talked about the head coaching hires. Ralph threw a hot take in there. What's new with that? But it was good. It was a good podcast all the way around. I was unable to be a part of it after some Zoom issues. So we're thankful for StreamYard being able to have them alongside of us the rest of the way with this. And Will, you actually were trying to use it. I'm telling you one thing though, StreamYard is here and Zoom's like way down here. Like it's off the screen with how rough it is. It's true. But listen, I want to get into the show tonight as we usually have a question. Okay. And this question is going to pertain to a topic we're talking about tonight. But make sure to share this, like this, subscribe. Will had a fantastic idea in the podcast. Go over to Apple Podcasts. If you have an iPhone, you got an iPad, got a Mac, you can do any of it. Leave us a 5-star review. We're going to be trying to think of something to send you, all of you people, guys and gals that decide to tune in and listen to the show. But Will, I want to preface this with this right here. Do you or do you not prefer to wear overalls? That's all I want to know. It's going to flow into the topic of conversation we're leading off here. Will, I'll start with you. Overalls, yes, sir. Overalls, they could be denim. They could be an ugly shade of orange. But if they're rolling with denim, do you wear overalls? Have you ever worn them?
I wear them to hunt, so they are camouflage.
I thought you said to class, and I was like, "Oh man, that's interesting."
No, only to hunt, and they're camouflage. Never the nasty shade of orange, even with some white thrown in there. Never those.
Never those. Not a big fan of checkers. I'm not a big fan of that game as well. Ralph, for you, have you ever wear overalls? Did you wear them as a child? Do you wear them now?
As a child, yes, I was forced to wear them because I didn't dress myself when I was 2 and 3 years old. But I have worn them in the past 2 years for only a certain reason. That would be to dress up as a Wreck-It Ralph. So
there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
The last I wore them was 2 years ago for Halloween. So yeah.
Yeah. Now Wreck-It Ralph has a red shirt that goes underneath it, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
I got one comment in here from Mr. Rhubarb Brown off of the Periscope and Twitter world. If a hot dog is a sandwich, then overalls or pants, please discuss. We'll open it up right here, Mr. Rhubarb Brown, about this. A hot dog to me is a sandwich. I'll give it. Overalls are pants. It's a little double duty action. Or you agree? Agree or disagree?
I mean, if overalls aren't pants, then what are they?
It's not a shirt. It's not a shirt.
I don't know what you classify them as.
Breaking news. Here you go, Mr. Rhubarb, if you're familiar with this terminology.
Mr. Rhubarb.
Overalls is the same thing as a men's romper. Is it a men's romper?
No, they came out with men's rompers.
Interesting. They came out with men's rompers.
They don't look like overalls. You haven't seen those pictures?
I don't want to see those pictures.
You don't want to see them.
Here we go. We got another one here on Facebook. Genesis Leggett. Overalls are a full body suit. So is it a morph suit? That's all we want to know here on the Crowded Booth.
I had a morph suit in middle school.
I did too. Mr. Rhubarb Brown comes in. Well, Bryson Will was confirmed he can no longer support this show. Well, I'll just keep the T-shirt that I was planning on sending out to you. Ed Jenkins Jr. comes in here. Overalls are their own category, Ed, and I love the fact that you have that profile picture in there for us to get into talking about. The first topic of conversation tonight. There's a lot of books that have been written. Their movie, The Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, this today on a Monday evening. Happy MLK Day. Before we get to it, I think, as Rhubarb, we will send you the shirt, and God bless you as well, sir. Before we get into, our rendition here on a Monday night, it's the nightmare in Knox County. This is not a fictitious tale of one man.
Unfortunately, not fictitious.
Unfortunately, not fictitious.
Yeah.
Let me set the scene here. One man, one team, a long time. 1998, T. Martin hurling the pigskin around the field. Beautiful kneeling. The Vols on their way to a national championship. And what else could happen? What could go wrong? Mr.
Feels
Fulmer.
like 98.
Feels like 98. Mr. Fulmer comes along. AD now. They bring in the son. They bring in the son of Vince. Orange pants make their way up and down the sideline.
Phil was not the AD. Phil
Yes, that's
was not
what I'm
the
saying.
AD.
I'm sorry.
Just to fact check.
Please,
here.
please, Mr. Fact Checker. I'm in the middle of my monologue.
Your monologue.
Orange pants make their way across the field.
He catches a pass from his own quarterback while he's standing on the sidelines and spikes it in frustration.
He also cannot figure out how many players should be on the field. And
he's asking, "Where's Rommel?
Where may Rommel be?"
Can I do it? Should I do it? I'm going to do it.
Go ahead.
Where's Rommel? They're asking, "Where's Rommel?"
Then along, maybe Shiano will come. Will he? Or will he stay up into the depths of New Jersey and head up to Rutgers?
Again.
We had the Lane train. The train is left. Down to Tuscaloosa it goes. Then, golden years. Bald boy throws Hail Mary. Beats dogs in between the hedges. It seems like it's going to be a good day, they say, until Alabama comes to town and Nick beats them like the stepchild that they are. The champions of life, they are no more. Then they bring in former Alabama defensive coordinator, former Georgia. Listen, he's got to have all the tools. Mr. Pruitt gets there. They build momentum. They have running backs. They have a quarterback who's named after a prison, Guantanamo Bay. But unfortunately, nothing can go right. So now that leads us here into the nightmare in Knox County. That was very long. That was off the cuff completely. Had none of that planned. We also missed maybe a couple there. But listen, folks, Tennessee versus everyone. They're against the world now. They have 9 coaches on their entire staff as of 8:08 p.m. Eastern tonight. Well, what in the world is going on in Knox County? Pruitt fired. Allegations everywhere. Philip Fulmer retires, obviously asked to step down. It's a mess, and players leaving the program in droves. We saw earlier a week ago, the running back makes his way over to Chapel Hill. An offensive lineman makes his way, former 4-star, 5-star, makes his way to Boomer Sooner country. It's a problem. Tennessee is in trouble. Will, what is the latest from those dirty boys in the overalls?
Yeah, so today, obviously, Tennessee fired head coach Jeremy Pruitt with cause. And so with cause, what does that mean? That means they held an investigation and found that he was violating NCAA rules and protocols in recruiting. And they determined 9 staff members were a part of that. And they blamed Jeremy Pruitt for a lack of oversight of his staff. And that's kind of where we're at. That means they don't have to pay his buyout, which is what they wanted. They seem to be hurting for money, which I don't understand how the flagship school of the state of Tennessee is ever hurting for money, but that's where we are. And now they are in late January and having to conduct an athletics director and head football coaching search. 2020 was a year of first, and 2021 is starting with a first as well. I don't think I've ever seen a head coach fired this late in January. After the coaching carousel, it seemed pretty much to have stopped once the national championship happened.
And I think, too, Will, when you look at what's happening in Knoxville, you have the sense of it was almost impending doom. We're going to run through a timeline here in a second of kind of this crazy situation that is happening, and it's just absolutely mind-boggling, kind of the downhill. Pruitt comes in as this high-profile guy. We want to bring him in. We want to have these different things. We're going to build a good team. And I even joked about it. I mean, I joked about the Josh Dobbs era and a season that was promising for Tennessee. It really was. They beat Georgia on a Hail Mary, and then they lose a close one at Texas A&M, a tough place to play, full capacity, obviously back before the days that we are at now. And then they lose to Alabama, and things kind of unravel. Now, listen, Tennessee, Will, you're an Auburn fan. Ralph, you grew up an Auburn fan. Auburn has one of the toughest schedules we've ever seen year in, year out. Tennessee has a very hard schedule every year. You're drawing Georgia and Florida. You also draw Alabama, and then maybe you draw an Auburn. You draw an A&M. You may draw an LSU. That I'm not saying it's the equivalent, but I mean, telling you that's a tough schedule. They do get to play Vanderbilt, however, so that I guess that is a step above the Mercer Bears. Shout out Mackenzie Kuhn for watching the show. But listen, the nightmare in Knox County. It's been an interesting development. We're going to take a look here at exactly what in the world is going on. I got my little Word document right here. We're going to take a look, and we're going to put our beautiful faces right next to it. So, guys, enjoy as we scroll through here, and I give you a dialogue from December. Let me take you back. December 7th, 2017. You guys tell me if you can see this, and we'll be good to go. Jeremy Pruitt was introduced. John Curry as the Volunteers athletic director at the time. It ended, and obviously Fulmer came aboard. After on January 8th, obviously, and for Georgia fans, it's a heartbreaking day. It's the one you close the shutters and you sleep all day. Pruitt wins the national championship, their fifth one with Alabama, then will come over to Vol Country. They open with a massive loss in Charlotte, 40-14. Now, listen, no one expected. You get into October, they had terrible losses. West Virginia, Florida, Georgia, all pretty good teams, but they're 2-3. They do get a massive upset for them at the time, stunning, then number 21 ranked Auburn inside Jordan-Hare. So you're thinking, oh, okay, here we go. We can maybe make a bowl game. Fast forward to right before Thanksgiving. Vanderbilt. Yes, third consecutive loss to Vanderbilt nets Tennessee an empty 5-7 mark with no bowl invitation. Fast forward to the next year, February 6th. The Vols then signed the nation's number 13 recruiting class. I'm telling you, that's a foundation. 2 5-star offensive tackles, Wanye Morris, Darnell Wright, Eric Gray, Henry toe-to-toe. It doesn't really matter anymore. August 31st, Tennessee opens. They lose to Georgia State in what is one of the biggest upsets we've seen in recent history. Georgia State goes up to Neyland full capacity, and this is a Georgia State team. I love them. I know some people with the program. I know some people who cover them. They were coming off a 2-10 season. It was not expected. Obviously, then you come back, Pruitt grabbing the face mask of Garantano. They do get a 6-game win streak to cap off, and they beat Indiana. Could the tide be turning? Fast forward, we come into 2020. Everything's going terrible, as you know. They came into the season with a winning streak. If you go back and look at it, guys, it's not all that impressive who they beat. They do beat Missouri to give them the 8-game winning streak and a number 14 ranking. Give us later into October, it's complete disarray, as you see right there. 34-7 loss to Kentucky, a team that had not won in Knoxville since 1984. They fire defensive line coach the next day. Pruitt then takes over. They lose to Florida 31-19. Now, all things considering, that's not a terrible loss. Really, it's not. 12-point loss to Florida. But he's 0-9 against the big three for Tennessee. Alabama, Florida, Georgia, with all nine double-digit defeats.
Yikes.
That's terrible. Get into December. Now, this is what we're kind of talking about, just so everyone has a preface of what is going on. Pete, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. We come in here. Reports surface of an internal investigation. When you have an internal investigation and you are a 3-7 team, that's not good. Pruitt is asked about it. Oh, just regular compliance stuff, he says. It's nothing important. They get invited to the Liberty Bowl. They pull out of the matchup due to a COVID test. And today, Pruitt was fired 4 calls, like Will Menace said. His final record was 16-19. You see the 2 outside linebackers right there. They were also let go as well. So that's a little bit of a history, guys, of what we were kind of seeing with this team. And I'm going to tell you one thing. You kind of got a little oral history right there. It is absolutely crazy what is happening in Knox County. Ralph, talk to me a little bit. You've seen some of the players make the way. I read you a couple of the guys. They're no longer in the orange and white for Tennessee. Eric Gray, no longer there. One of those offensive tackles makes his way to Oklahoma. From a recruiting standpoint, I mean, we talked about this on the phone before the show started. Players, if they did sign, now Ralph, you said it's a small signing class. If they do sign, and Will agrees with me, I know as well, they should be allowed to revoke that and come back with that national letter of intent because of stuff like this. This is why the transfer portal is a good thing, because of situations happening in Knoxville.
Yeah, and I've always agreed with the same thing, is that if you commit somewhere and you sign to a college and next thing you know, the head coach of that college leaves or is fired, you should have the ability to pull out of that decision because you weren't expecting that. You wanted to play for that certain coach. Like, if I'm signed to Alabama, I want to play for Nick Saban, and he leaves the next day, I'm kind of upset. I wanted to play for Saban. I wanted to go there for him and play with him and play under him. And then, I should be able to back out. And Tennessee waited after the signing day to do this, which, I mean, in their part, I guess it's smart. But a lot of these guys have also gone to Twitter and said, I still want to play for this school. I still want to play for what this school stands for. And some of the guys who are already there, I still want to play here. And a lot of guys are still backing up Pruitt. A lot of the players who are still there are saying that's my coach. No matter no matter what they say, that's my coach. I'm still going to be here, fully support them, and all of that. So yeah, it's a recruit. It draws away a lot of recruits, especially some of your top ones who have other colleges that want them to come there over Tennessee. I know a few guys who are on Tennessee's commitment list who decommitted today, and I'm pretty sure Auburn's going to look for a few of them right now. And I know Georgia and Alabama are going after them too.
Mm-hmm. Will, I want to throw it over to you because talking about what Ralph said, when you look at what's happening in Knoxville, you're in a conference where you cannot allow this kind of stuff to happen. Ralph just rattled off two teams right there, Auburn, Georgia, knocking at your door. Alabama's just south of you. Heck, Kentucky, South Carolina. There are schools that were competing. Now what's going on from a recruiting standpoint, how does this affect to you and kind of some of the guys coming in? I mean, if I'm coming in, I don't want to be a part of this. There's most likely going to be some bowl bans. There's most likely going to be some postseason bans, scholarship limits. Will, for you, what are you seeing on a recruiting front, and maybe what is Auburn looking at? What are some other schools? I mean, it's poaching season. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'll tell you, the very first thing is coaches from those schools you mentioned, Kentucky, South Carolina, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. The first thing they're going to tell these kids that have been recruited by Tennessee is, you don't have a coach. You see the mess going on up there. You want somewhere with stability, and we're stable. Even Auburn and South Carolina with new head coaches, there's more stability there. But you talk about recruiting front, offensive lineman. Now I can't think of his name. Four-star offensive lineman that decommitted. Now the consensus is that he's going to flip to Auburn. So that's just one. I mean, and I think a linebacker too. But whether it's Auburn, whether it's Georgia, these guys are decommitting, and like the schools we mentioned, they're just licking their chops going after them. And even players that are there, general consensus, a lot of the young recruits, the young freshmen and sophomores of Pruitt's two good recruiting classes are going to hit the transfer portal, and these teams are going to be going after them hard.
They're going to be going after them. They're going to be chasing after, in a year where COVID already limited what you could really do recruiting, not being able to have players on campus. This makes it even hard for whoever does have to step in. Well, I'm going to throw it back to you, because now who is stepping in as the interim coach for the Volunteers? It's our old friend Kevin Steele from the Plain.
Yes, sir.
Talk about what Kevin Steele inherits here. I mean, you were texting me a little bit earlier. You talked about kind of the coaching staff. I mean, Steele's got his work cut out for him. To me, it's pretty much the Tennessee brass saying, listen, you just keep us afloat. We know this is a bad situation. It's time for Tennessee fans, the administration, to realize this isn't 1998, folks. You're in trouble. You're a very bad program. You're a bad team. You are the lower echelon of the SEC. I mean, you're no longer, we're almost there. And then you pile this on top. I mean, it's a mess.
Well, when you turn your program over to a coach that's 9-38 in his career as a head coach, you're in the cellar. And thankfully, Auburn fans were loud enough and bold enough to make their voices heard when it sounded like Kevin Steele was going to be the next guy at Auburn. But I think the funniest thing about all this was Philip Fulmer's quote today. When asked about Kevin Steele, he said, "When I hired him, I didn't think he was going to be acting head coach. He hired him last week. Come on, Phil. Come on. You knew something was going to happen. But, I mean, there's just crazy developments, even more intertwined with Auburn and Tennessee. Defensive end Big Cat Bryant transferring from Auburn to Tennessee. A lot of Auburn people think that tells them everything they needed to know about Kevin Steele and the situation with him potentially undermining Gus Malzahn, with Big Cat Bryant following him up there. Tells everybody they need to know. There's no rumors or any kind of factual evidence beyond that. So,
but you can connect the dots.
You can connect the dots, and the speculation is there. And Auburn, going in a new direction needs all that bad baggage gone, and it'll be for the best of the program moving forward. And I think for Tennessee as well, even going with Kevin Steele, he's from Tennessee, played at Tennessee, started his coaching career at Tennessee. He knows what goes on up there. He knows what has to be done up there. And he's been around, worked for a ton of great coaches. If this is his job, or if this is a show-me year for him, I hope he does great. I mean, the way things ended for him at Auburn was not good, but there was a lot of good that he did at Auburn. So there's no hard feelings for me.
We have a comment from a listener/watcher. Ed comes back here on Twitter. We appreciate you watching, Ed. Make sure to retweet it and share it. The show, as we're live right now on Twitter, which is obviously the Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. It seems if Kevin Steele was essentially what Matt Luke was at Ole Miss. Matt Luke was kind of that stopgap guy, and he turned in. Listen, Matt Luke wasn't a bad head coach. He just, when you have the chance to hire Lane Kiffin, you're going to take it. Matt Luke obviously now doing things at Georgia, and so far we have not seen a drop-off in the recruiting, a good recruiter, good offensive line coach. I'll ask both of you guys this, and Ralph, I'll go with you real quick. Where do the Vols turn now? Now Will's got his man. Will's got his man in mind. The greatest, should we say it? The greatest quarterback in Tennessee.
No.
Don't say it.
It's a hot take.
It's a hot take. It's an inside joke. But for real, stick with Kevin Steele. He can provide some veteran leadership for right now and kind of keep it even keeled. But Ralph, when you're Tennessee, you look at recruiting. Do you just try to find anybody that's willing to come to Tennessee and say, listen, we'll give you a player, or what are the young guys? What do you preach the message in the locker room? Let's say Kevin Steele meets with the team tomorrow. What is he saying to this team?
Guys, we basically, if he's walking in that locker room tomorrow or sometime this week, saying these players believe in the system, believe in what we have going forward from here. I know a lot of things have changed, and I know a lot of things are going to change in the next few weeks. You got to stay committed to this program. I understand that you probably have a lot of questions and you're probably angry with a lot of things, but you got to go out there and believe in what we're going to do next year. Believe in your teammates, believe the guy next to you, believe in who's coming in. The guys who are coming in are guys who committed to this program. They want to win. They want to win here with y'all. So don't give up. Keep your head up. We're gonna figure this out and do it together.
We're going to figure this out, and we're going to do it together. I'll tell you one thing, Will. I don't know if Ralph's ever been interested in being an offensive line coach, but hey, that was a pretty good coach speak right there, Ralph. Will, when you look at it, I think Ralph hit the nail on the head. You got to stay committed. You got to find guys that are going to stay committed throughout this transition process. I know you have a guy in mind, but you said Kevin Steele. What does Tennessee do now? Now we know, and we've seen some comments, Peyton Manning will indeed be a part of the coaching search. And obviously, Vol fan 63 on the message boards is sitting there saying, well, yeah, let's bring in Peyton Manning, let him be the quarterback. And okay, listen. If Peyton Manning wants to play quarterback, then he can. If he doesn't, then he's going to keep doing some great commercials.
He probably still has a year of eligibility.
He might.
He probably only played 3 years. I don't know for sure.
Listen, he might. But I'll tell you one thing. Whoever's head coach, you need to start Harrison Bailey immediately. You need to give him the reins of the quarterback job. Ralph's been saying that since 2019. It felt like when he signed. But Will, for you, where does Tennessee turn now?
Well, like you said, Peyton Manning will be involved. I would look to him for athletics director. He's been, rumored and had conversations about being a GM in the NFL. If you can be a GM in the NFL, to me, I think you can be an athletics director. But there's a guy on staff that was not terminated today who I think would be good for them moving forward, not just in an interim role, but in a full-time capacity. And that's T. Martin. He's another guy that knows what goes on there. He was a quarterback winning the national championship in '98. He's been around the program more recently than Steele, but like you said, Steele brings that veteran leadership. Great in an interim role, but I think you got to consider T. Martin for the full-time head coach.
You may have to consider T. Martin. I think they're wise to give it to Kevin Steele right now to provide, let's use a big word, buoyancy. You need to stay level with the water right now. You can't afford, and we talked about it as Pete makes another appearance on the show. We're going to have to get Pete a T-shirt. But I think, guys, the biggest thing when you look at what's going on with Tennessee is the recruiting is the problem. I mean, they bring in guys, but it doesn't feel like they stay. Then they bring in guys, they don't play them. I mean, no disrespect to Jarrett Garantano, but I was talking to a Tennessee fan the other day, and they said every single time Garantano showed you something why he should be on the field, the next play he showed you why he shouldn't be on the field. It was just a roller coaster. So I think buoyancy, staying level with the water is going to be the biggest thing. We got to tread water, guys.
The hardest thing about recruiting at Tennessee is Knoxville. Knoxville, there's not a lot there. And, it's not as appealing as a South Carolina, a Georgia, Athens, or an Auburn. I mean, there's not much in Tuscaloosa, but Nick Saban. So that's your draw there. I mean, there's not much there to draw these kids in other than coaches and the football program. And the shape that it's in now, it's going to be hard to recruit just on that.
Well, I'm going to read you off before we head into a commercial break and we talk about a little bit of professional football. So 5 early names that have come up in this potential search. Kevin Steele is one of them to be retained. Obviously, we know that. Another one is you look at T. Martin. So Will, you hit the nail on the head. The other 3, I want to read these to you. Hugh Freeze. Now, Hugh Freeze was in the conversation early on when there were rumors that he might be fired. But the only thing is, does the SEC want to bring in a coach that had to leave the conference because of issues and violations into a program that is currently dealing with them? Now, listen, I'm not here to judge what Hugh Freeze is doing. I hope the man's a changed man. He's done great. He's fantastic. He's got a good ball club up in Liberty. But we don't know. We will have to see what happens. That's an interesting – he probably would be the best hire, the best available hire that you could put out there.
So the other name I have in my head is not on that list then.
Oh, it's not on your list. Jamie Chadwell is another one, Coastal Carolina. He signed the extension. You would have to buy him out. And Will, go ahead and give me the other one because I want to give this one last before we head to commercial. Because this is
all right. So the other one in my head. The other one in my head is a better version of Hugh Freeze with no NCAA baggage, and that is Gus Malzahn.
Oh, good Lord!
The Gus bus heads up to Knox County. Wow. Should we? That's interesting.
But
Start the rumor train now.
The thing about Gus though, he's sitting on that pile of money, not having to work. He might enjoy his time off too much.
He was playing. His wife took a picture of him. He was playing golf, and he seemed like he was enjoying his.
A friend of mine works at the golf course in Auburn, and ran into him and talked to him. Seems to be handling the firing pretty well, playing plenty of golf.
The dismissal. That's what we'll say.
I'm sorry.
The final coaching. I don't even want to get your guys' reaction. We're going to have to go straight to commercial because this is just this is wild. His name starts with an A.
Oh, it's not who I was thinking.
And it is better known as the first man that God created, Mr. Adam Gase.
Oh, good. No.
Oh, Lord.
We're going to commercial break. We're not even talking about that one.
Different former NFL coach that went to a Super Bowl for the Tennessee NFL team. A guy who I think doesn't even have an agent because every job that comes open, he gets on some sports talk radio show and puts his name in the hat, and that's Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher would be interesting. Adam Gase is interesting as well. Listen, folks, we're going to head to commercial break. This show brought to you by Cooks. We're going to see exactly what happens here soon as here we go.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the Landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place. Fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
I want to make sure.
I hope everybody liked my Adam Gase impression right there.
I had a great going out into. Can I get it right here, real quick? Let's look at a screenshot. Can someone flip that real quick? We're gonna get a picture of that. We'll keep that face going.
I can't keep it for that long.
Here we go. 3. Give me 4 seconds of good. Here, 1, 2. There you go. That's what we wanted to see. That'll be headed up on the Twitter page here later on this evening. You can find us on Twitter, by the way, at The Crowded Booth, at Facebook, Crowded Booth, and obviously Instagram at The Crowded Booth. Listen, guys, I want to get into a little more conversation about football. We'll head over to the professional ranks. A big weekend. We had, obviously, the triple headers last weekend with the extended round of playoffs, or the extended teams we allowed in. Not we, I don't work for the NFL, but you know what I mean. Then you come in with, obviously, the divisional round, your typical, what you usually see. And, guys, I'm going to tell you one thing. It was a great weekend of football. It really was. And you guys previewed it. I was listening on the drive home today, and I think one of the biggest things is the only thing you were desperately wrong about is that the Bills-Ravens game might have been the best game played, because I think all of them were really good games that were being played. And I'll tell you, we'll lead off with the first one. The Packers, man, they're just too much. They're just way too much offensively. They got a good offense. Ralph, you said on the podcast, Aaron Rodgers can make plays. He's just a playmaker. I mean, whether it's screaming out of the pocket to heave a ball downfield. And I don't even know if Packer fans want to hear this, but I'm telling you, you know who did that? Number 4 that wore the Packer jersey. He would make plays. Brett Favre. When you guys look at this, the Packers, they're just too dominant. They're going to be facing – let's take an NFC look at it, because we'll talk about it Wednesday. We may dive in the podcast later in the week, kind of some championship game previews. But, man, it's going to be Packers and then versus Brady. I mean, Rodgers versus Brady in the NFC Championship. I'll tell you one thing, I'm not betting against Brady. I don't care what it is. I can physically not do it. I cannot bet against Brady. For you guys, what did you like? What did you see from this weekend from the Packers that you like, just specifically from the Packers?
Well, one thing is that they dominated on offense as always. One quick thing I took away from the game is that I don't think the Rams are ready to play. Just to me, injuries. But I think Aaron Rodgers did what he did all season. All his short passes most of the game, and kind of kept it cool, just playing it, not doing too much, and then opened the field up to one deep, and it surprised their whole entire secondary. They weren't ready for it. I think the pass was a 58-yard touchdown to Lazard. A terrific throw by him. He picked apart that whole secondary. I mean, Jalen Ramsey was one of the best corners all year, and against top receivers, and it came down to facing Devontae Adams, and he got worked. That's the best way to put it. Devontae Adams worked them all game. That just shows you the connection between Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers are great. Not to mention the 3 running backs in the backfield for Aaron Rodgers with Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, and Jamal Williams, who had terrific games, all 3 of them. So they have a lot of weapons, and a lot of them you don't know about until you sit on the field and get ran over by them.
Yeah. Green Bay did what they wanted offensively. You're talking about an LA defense that has the best defensive player on the planet in Aaron Donald. Will, from you, and we will talk about this, what did you see from maybe the Rams? And I don't know if you got a chance to go back and maybe look at some of the stats, but it was just interesting to see kind of what happened for LA, because Green Bay, while they're not known for their defense, the defense played pretty well, and they came up when it mattered, or they played stout when it mattered.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the injuries that LA had. To play a team like the Packers, as good as the Packers are, to stay in that game with an injured Jared Goff, an injured Aaron Donald, who was out there, I don't know, probably 30 to 40% of the snaps. To make that a 4-quarter game is very impressive. It shows their depth. It shows – and I think Sean McVay is one of the best game planners in the game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I'll tell you what, if you know the offensive side of the ball as well as he does, you know some defense too. You don't get to be a head coach in the NFL knowing just one side of the ball. And, we'll probably get into it a little bit later, but he's now lost his defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, another young, extremely ridiculously good coach. I don't know how the Rams they're hoarding all the young minds in football and putting them on one coaching staff. I mean, the game plan he came up with is about as good as you can come up with. I mean,
yeah,
the Packers are kind of an old school West Coast offense. Like Ralph said, they're going to run the ball, they're going to throw it short, and he stopped that about as well as you can. And they just got beat deep a couple times, and that's Aaron Rodgers, and that's the Packers scheming against that.
We'll move on to the next game. I wanted to point out something that Ralph said was big, was the rushing game. They were balanced, very balanced. Rodgers threw for almost 300 yards, 296 yards through the air. But you look at the rushing stats.
That's got to be close to his season high. I mean,
it's crazy. It's crazy what he's been able to do. Aaron Jones, 14 carries for 99 yards. That's 7.1 yards per carry. Jamal Williams, 12 for 65. A.J. Dillon, 6 for 27. Every back in the game that had averaged above 4.5, either 4.5 or above. If you run the ball 3 times and you get 4.5 yards of carry, that's first down all day. I don't care how you do it. It may not be pretty, but the Packers are doing it. Ralph, you said on the podcast, the Packers are not the most flashiest offense, but they get the job done. You guys talked about it well. A quiet, what seems like back-to-back 13-3 seasons for this Green Bay team.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next game, though. Let's talk about the Saturday night game. Buffalo they host Baltimore. The big story to me was Lamar Jackson's never played in the cold. Okay, he'll be fine. It was a great game. And listen, I'm telling you one thing. I slept on Josh Allen when he came out of the draft. I said, there's no way. I'm telling you, when he's embodied the culture of Buffalo, the Bills they're hot. Stephon Diggs is having a career year with a very good quarterback. And I'll tell you one thing, the Bills are a hot team. They're going to be matching up against another really good team. But you got to like the way this Buffalo team's playing. Well, I'll let you lead this off right here. Bills and Ravens.
I just want to know who jinxed Justin Tucker. That's all I want to know.
Yes.
Is it the first time he's ever missed 2 field goals in a game?
Yeah.
I mean, it turned out I don't think to be the difference in the game, but it's a huge momentum swing, especially with how good he is. He is up there as one of the greatest of all time. But he just had a rough game, kicking in the cold. But it gets cold in Baltimore, so no excuses for him, and he's not going to make any excuses either. He holds himself to a high standard. But like you said, Lamar Jackson, great game. I mean, he just continues to quiet doubters, and I've been a doubter of Lamar Jackson. I'm even still really a doubter, and he keeps making me eat my words. He's to me the most fun quarterback to watch. They've tailored that offense to him, running a lot of option, short passes. It makes it tough to, if a team's shutting down the run game like Buffalo did, it's tough to beat them. But the future is still extremely bright.
It's extremely bright. Lamar Jackson's only 25, guys. And listen, he's gone back-to-back playoff apperances with this Ravens
team.
Won a playoff game against a very good Titans team. Or 3 straight. Yes. And so, he's going to be great. But this Bills team, I want to read off some stats before I go to you, Ralph. The running game was not necessarily there for Buffalo. Singletary, obviously, kind of their feature back right now, 7 rushes for 25 yards. TJ Yeldon in their backup role, just 4 yards on 2 carries. But Allen,
I didn't even know TJ Yeldon was on the Bills.
Yeah. That's
Zach Moss,
Yes, because Zach, obviously the injury to Zach Moss, Yeldon had to come up in a role. But I'll tell you this: Singletary did make a little bit of an impact. He did have 3 receptions in the passing game. But you look, and I said he's had a breakout year, and if you consider it a breakout year, this Stephon Diggs, guys. 8 receptions, 106 yards in that weather. I'm telling you guys, he's with it. And Kirk Cousins, I liked Kirk Cousins. I really did. But I'm telling you one thing, the Allen to Diggs, I don't know if you guys know this, and I was reading this article about it, and it's kind of interesting to talk about. Obviously, when Diggs was traded to Buffalo in the offseason, COVID was rampant. They didn't get to have, and Ralph, you talked about the rapport, I should say, between a receiver and a quarterback is huge. Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. It's massive. They played video games. They literally played video games during the offseason. They developed it. When they got to training camp, they did everything together. That shows you that Diggs left a situation which he could have been mad at, and he played well. Ralph, I'm actually going to skip you for this one. I apologize. We're going to move on to some more so we can get to it. But I think you would agree the Bills played great. I'll bring up the next game. Do you want to say anything about – listen, Buffalo, they're a cold-weather team. It does kind of match up. They're going to be playing the Chiefs. I'll let you lead off with this one. Chiefs-Browns. I'm telling you one thing. A fantastic football game, a team that is at the top of its game right now in Kansas City, and a team, I'm telling you, folks, and listen, I'm not a Browns fan. I do have a Browns beanie that I'm going to be sporting in 2021, but I'll tell you this right now.
Oh, we couldn't wear beanies tonight.
No, not on the show. Not on the show. Strictly professional. Yeah. But Cleveland is a team for the first time in a long time. They are here, but they're not just here in one year. This team is going to be very, very talented. They may lose Kareem Hunt in the offseason. They may lose some players. But I'm telling you one thing. with the anchor of the court. And Ralph, I think you, and I'm telling you, going back to Ralph, because Ralph killed it on the podcast, you got to go listen to it, guys, on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud as well. But Ralph said this, the relationship a team has to build, and he talked about this with Urban Meyer, we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show, you have to have just the right head coach combination and the right quarterback combination. And when you have that, it's going to be perfect. Now, Baker, his first 2 years in the NFL, or however long this was, it was a mess. It was a mess. Kevin Stefanski's in there now. I'm telling you, they're building something special in Cleveland. They fall short. Ralph, what did you see from that game? I mean, I'm telling you, I watched the game from start to finish. Fantastic football game. Questionable hit there. We can talk about that as we close the show, because I'll tell you the thing, if that hits in college, the guy's ejected. Yeah. Like he's ejected. It's targeting. But talk about the game. I mean, Kansas City, well-deserved. And Chad Henne, I forgot the guy was in the NFL, to be honest with you.
Anything's possible, baby. Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Ralph, what did you see from the game? What was maybe a big takeaway, just 1 or 2 from you?
Well, I thought the Browns really played a better game than I expected. I mean, I'm not trying to downgrade what the Browns have done this year. They've done a great job. They beat the Steelers in the first round, and they got their first playoff win in I don't know how many years. But they definitely played better defense than I expected. Their offense moved the ball. It's a tough Kansas City team. Now, I know from all of us here, we really hope that Mahomes gets better. Injury is awful to see a guy like him go down. Hope he's back for next week's game. But with Mahomes going down, and I hate saying it this way, the Browns got to step up, and it's time to we got to play here. We have a chance to win. Their quarterback gone. Their quarterback's down. We gotta go, and they couldn't finish at the end. One thing I took away from it is you saw the stat line real quick from Mahomes. He always had 300 yards, I think, if I'm correct. He was just heating up. I feel like the Chiefs were going to take it away and just blow them out in the second half, but it obviously ended the way it is. But one more takeaway, though, is I feel like the Chiefs had the Browns ready. I think they were ready for them. I'm sorry. I don't think the Browns were ready for the Chiefs. Yeah. And I think Tyreek Hill played like he always does, aggressively, super fast, had 100 yards receiving, I think. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I'm not looking at the stats right now, but it's a Chiefs game. They do exactly what they do always. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill combo, and then they're going to beat you with one of their other 3 receivers on the team.
There's so many weapons. At one point late in the first half, Kansas City had about 270 yards of total offense. Mm-hmm. Cleveland had 70. And it was a 16-point game. I think it was, I apologize, 16-3 or something like that, 13-3. I mean, this is a game that was very winnable for Cleveland. Will, when you look at this game and you kind of see how it all shaked out, Ralph made the comment that he didn't know if Cleveland was ready. I don't know how ready you can be for this Kansas City attack, but when you see exactly, Will, kind of what happened, Cleveland has a bright future, but Patrick Mahomes and company, Kelce, Hardman, Hill, guys, you know who started for them at running back, correct?
Wasn't it LaShawn? Not LaShawn McCoy.
Not LaShawn McCoy. He did play for them.
Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell. Like just casually throws Le'Veon Bell in the starting lineup, who obviously mixed with Damian Williams and a couple other guys. Well, this Chiefs offense was just too much. It really was just too much. You saw in the first part of the game, Kansas City was driving down the field. What were some takeaways for you?
Well, I would say that the Browns were ready. The Chiefs are just crazy hard to stop. And they're 2 totally different teams. The Chiefs are going to air it out, and the Browns are going to ground and pound it with Nick Chubb. And, that 13-point game when they had only 70 yards and giving up 270, that didn't scare them. That didn't faze them at all. That was, as the underdog always says, or the team really that's losing, we got them right where we want them. And, they're probably aided with Mahomes coming out. That boosted their spirits and got them a score to get back in the ball game. But that's what they do. They're not going to air it out with Baker. They're going to ask him to make the routine throws to, kind of baseball term, make the routine play. That's what they ask him to do. And it works. And, I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs for years to come.
They're very good at doing the little things right. I mean, you watch what they're able to do, the amount of bootlegs that Baker Mayfield runs. I mean, it's play action. He's very good at. And you have to be good. I mean, listen, to do that, you have to have a dominant run game. Cleveland, one of the best run games we saw in the NFL all season, to me, which is top 3 when healthy. And when everyone in the NFL is healthy, back in Nick Chubb. I mean, Nick Chubb is dominating the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Then you put in the fact that he has Kareem Hunt as well as a change of pace type of back. I mean, that's a deadly 1-2 combo, maybe the best 1-2 combo in the NFL, if we're completely honest, in Hunt and Chubb. When you see exactly what Cleveland has going on, but credit to Mahomes, Chad Henne never even thrown a playoff pass. And listen, he scrambles. Who thought Chad Henne was going to scramble for a first? If you'd have told me that Chad Henne was going to have to scramble for a first down and then get 4th and inches and then just roll out and throw a little, which is to me like the Nick Marshall Auburn play to Tyreek Hill where they kind of run a speed option and then they're going to throw it. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Chiefs hold off the Browns. They're going to be facing the Bills next week. But let's get into the finale, which was Sunday night. Brady defeats Breeze in a matchup of future Hall of Famers. Now, I don't know if you guys were able to see what happened post-game and what kind of happened with everything, from Brady talking to Breeze's kids. I'm going to tell you one thing. Group of Falcons fan, love the Falcons, sadly. It hurts. But I'll tell you one thing. You as a Falcons fan, you grow up, you hate the Saints. You just can't stand them. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you this. There is not an amount of respect that I think that any Falcons fan or anybody across the league shows for Drew Brees. The guy was doubted his entire career and will no doubt go down as, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he will no doubt go down in the conversation of top 10. I don't know, however you want to rank them, quarterbacks of all time. Holds almost every statistic category you could think of. I mean, Brees was that good. Brady was just a little bit better. Will, I listened to the podcast, and you kind of were hinting at this. I don't know if you wanted to say it, but it's obvious that Brees, his arm strength is dwindling. It was. Yeah. He averaged 3.9 yards per attempt in that in the game. The longest pass was having to be thrown by Jameis Winston. And listen, Sean Payton is a mastermind. He is. But there was just some physical elements holding Brees back. I'm telling you, he doesn't doubt what he did in his career. A fantastic matchup. Will, you also said it on the show, Brady, or on the podcast, Brady is absolutely the GOAT. I couldn't stand Tom Brady, but what he's doing it with better players. Yeah. Ralph, you pointed out, I mean, when you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate, Antonio Brown, and other players, and then also you have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. I mean, those are weapons that he never had. He never had New England. And let's get off the little white receiver train. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get off that because that's fun. Wes Welker and all the Julian Edelman, they're smart. Yeah, but they're smart players. But I'm telling you, they are not Mike Evans. They're not Chris Godwin. These top tier, top 15, top 10 receivers are each year annually. For you guys, and I'll start off with you, Will, when you saw this game, you see what Breeze has done. We're going to bring in some comments about this game, and thanks for watching. Please continue to share the video as we go here. What did you take away? The Buccaneers, I'm telling you, I'm excited to see that matchup next Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the Buccaneers, it's their defense is really the story. I mean, and what's funny to me, being the Auburn guy, they've got Auburn defensive backs. I mean, I said it after, Carlton Davis was on Michael Thomas. No catches, 0 yards. I mean,
you mean slant boy?
Yeah, slant boy, according to Carlton Davis. The fact that Auburn has defensive backs in the NFL, period, is pretty much news to me because I've watched my whole life, and very rarely does Auburn put defensive backs in the NFL. But these guys are elite. I mean, Tom Brady's going to get all the headlines, but that defense is elite. You saw Devin White pick off Drew Brees. He had a pick six, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He had a pick six. The defense is just as good as the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, holding Drew Brees to 20 points. Holding Drew Brees to 20 points, regardless of his arm strength, Drew Brees and a Sean Payton offense, holding them to 20 points is extraordinary.
Well, they did it with the help of 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble, and a costly fumble at that. That was kind of getting in deep into Tampa Bay territory. Ralph, Tampa Bay is not known for the defense. They're really not. They got a 34-year-old Ndamukong Suh who has kind of revitalized that defensive line. And Gerald McCoy's not there anymore. It's not the Gerald McCoy days that we saw, years prior. From a line perspective, I mean, they did a really good job. Alvin Kamara is a great back. Latavius, Murray was not available in this game.
Yeah.
So New Orleans, they struggled to get the ball. They struggled to get vertical. And I think that was one thing that kind of hindered them. Let's go to some comments real quick, though, because I want to make sure we get all of this in. Trey Alexander comes in watching on Twitter. Drew Brees is, in fact, a legend, absolutely criminal that him and Sean only got one Super Bowl. Of course, it's some crazy plays. And, Ralph, you were talking about it, some crazy plays that have happened for the Saints the past couple of years in the playoffs.
I've witnessed fans heartbreak in person to those few games. I'm not going to say who, but I witnessed a lot of those heartbreak games, and I've laughed a little bit now. But just I'll throw it back real quick to the D line for Tampa Bay. Steve McClendon. He was a dominant force in the game as a Troy University grad. Just to let you know.
There we go.
And he's up in his 30s too, right?
Yeah, he played for the Jets most of his career. Got traded to the Buccaneers or signed out of free agency with the Buccaneers this past season. And he's done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, this Buccaneers team to me is the perfect mix of veterans and young players at the right spots, and they've got a Super Bowl roster. We'll have to see if they can get there.
Adding Antonio Brown definitely stepped this team up, just by a lot though. Because that adds a great veteran, stance in the receiving room. Which you had Mike Evans, who's terrific, but Antonio Brown could do a little bit more than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Well, and he's a deadly in the slot. We know what Antonio Brown can do. Will, real quick, I want you to count it loud to me, and I'll tell you when to stop. Go from 1 up, real quick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, stop 9, right there. No, go back to 8. Say 8 again.
8.
Okay, that's how many players had receptions for Tampa Bay. Spreading the ball around. You like that, didn't you? That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Yeah. 8 different players had receptions. I'm telling you, there's a lot of weapons. This team is designed well. Also, Leonard Fournette, 17 carries, 63 yards. Ronald Jones, 13 carries, 62 yards. Plus 100 in the rush category. And Tom Brady finishes with just shy of 200 at 199 and 2 touchdowns. Listen, Tom's not going to air the ball out. He will if the receiver beats you. But they make smart plays. It sets up for a fantastic matchup for 2 of the best quarterbacks, not only in the game, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm going to tell you one thing. Just of all time. I mean, really, Rodgers and Brady, what they're able to do just from a career standpoint. And then you talk about Brees. Drew Brees, if this really is the end, he said post-game he's going to have to think about it. A lot of players started throwing out the congratulations. Obviously, before the game, the reports came out. But I'll tell you one thing. You see what Drew Brees has done for the game of football, what he's done not only for that city of New Orleans. I mean, there's not a more marquee player in New Orleans Saints history. There isn't. What Drew Brees has done, and obviously you have a long list of talented players, but just what a player has meant to a franchise, Drew Brees is definitely one of those.
It's him and Archie Manning are 1 and 2, and then a major gap to 3 on the impact of the franchise in the city, like you said.
Well, listen, I want to spend the last 8 minutes talking about just one head coaching change. And you guys covered on the podcast. Once again, make sure to check that out. Apple Podcasts, At the Crowded Booth, SoundCloud as well, and Spotify. But I want to hit on this one because you guys had some great conversation about it. Arthur Smith was named the Falcons head coach, and what does that really mean for Atlanta? Now, we can't delve into schematically what that's going to necessarily mean because we don't have the coordinators. Ralph was on the phone with me earlier, and we talked about the fact that Raheem Morris may be headed to Jacksonville as the defensive coordinator for Urban Meyer. Interesting tidbit there on Urban Meyer's staff is that Charlie Strong is going to be the linebackers coach for the Jaguars this coming year. But I want to just get something from you guys because I was listening to the podcast. I was like, man, I wish I could have been on this episode because there were some things that I'd love to say. And I think one thing is that you guys were talking about what the Titans and what they employ. And I think personnel-wise. And Arthur Smith is going to find a different personnel group when he gets to Atlanta, when he looks at the roster. Now, Ralph, you hit the nail on the head. 2 talented wide receivers. Who, if Julio, when healthy, top 5 receiver in the NFL. Calvin Ridley, making his way into the conversation of a top-tier receiver this year. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. When people reevaluate, and we'll say the fantasy rankings. When the fantasy rankings come out for us to make a draft, I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens there. But when you guys look at this Falcons team, there's a glaring hole in the backfield. Obviously, Todd Gurley, which was a cool story. It just took that long for the Falcons to realize, hey, Georgia's got pretty good running backs at their university. Let's try to get one of those. A little too late. And listen, I love Todd Gurley, one of the most exciting college players we've seen in a long time. I'm a very, very talented player. But personnel-wise, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this, I don't think that Atlanta has the personnel to run that power style. Now, listen, Ralph, you talked about Najee Harris. You talked about they want to maybe reach for him at 4. If they did, they went. You brought this up when you said that. I was sat in my car and I was like, "What? Najee Harris at 4?" And Wilkes comes with, now, really? I'm in the camp, and Will, I understand your viewpoint as well. I'm in the camp, you don't take a running back in the first round. Will's old school, folks. He wants to bunt the baseball to get people over and get them in, and then he also doesn't believe in taking a running back in the first round.
Shoot, no, if I was old school about NFL drafts, I'd load up the first round with running backs, and we're going to go 3 yards in a cloud of dust and beat everybody, kind of like how the Browns beat them.
Yeah. We'll go wing T the whole way down.
That's right.
I'm down for that, too. I want a little wing T.
I don't think Atlanta has the offensive line they want.
Right.
I don't think so. So I want to offer this solution, and I've read about this and did some research on the way driving down 75 and 85 back to Columbus today, and was thinking to myself, and it was podcast, it was audio, so don't worry, I wasn't reading it. But when you look at Atlanta wants to employ, if they do indeed go for Najee Harris, maybe late first round or second round, I don't know. I think he's going to be taken the first round by somebody. I really do. I think he's that talented. He will be taken the first round. Teams are now looking at the mistake, and I'm not comparing the running backs at all. Teams are looking at the mistake they made with Nick Chubb, and they're like, if we get a guy who we think could be very talented, we're not going to pass up on him. And that would be the only argument. But Ralph offered a great rebuttal, and most oftentimes people have hot takes, and I commend you on this because most people have hot takes, they can't back it up, and you backed it up with this. Saquon was taken number 2. The fear of taking a running back in the top 5, top 10 even, maybe top 15, is a real thing because like Will said, the mileage these guys take after playing at least a minimum of 3 seasons, maybe 2 if they're redshirted and can leave, but a minimum of 3 seasons in college is interesting. Najee's played 4. Now, they had a stable of running backs. But I'm going to tell you one thing. If you can get a talent like Najee, that would be fantastic. But I like if Sewell was there at 4. Now, I've read this. Now, schematically, I don't know how it would work, but there's interest from the Falcons front office if they could get Sewell and kick Jake Matthews into the left guard position, where maybe as now older, he might be more seasoned and maybe not as fast, and then maybe he's not as athletic he was when the Falcons took him with a high draft pick. But we can talk about. We're going to go through a draft board. Will's getting some stuff together. We're start releasing a weekly kind of big board from the crowded booth, but. For you guys, schematically, when you look at what Arthur Smith has done, Ralph, I don't know if it's going to be, let's go getting Patrick DeMarco back and let's line up in an I formation and run it.
Let's do it.
It would work. Let's see. But I think with the way things are going, you can't break down the whole roster. You're going to have to plug. You're going to have to plug up those holes. You're going to have to stop the ship from sinking. Will, I'll start with you, though. If you're sitting there at 4, I mean – schematically, what do you think Arthur Smith may be looking for? Is it an offensive lineman to kind of bolster so he can get that power game in there? Is it a skill player? Is it a quarterback that you're going to be grooming for 2 to 3 years maybe behind Matt Ryan? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a tough one. I think number 1 is offensive line, and that would be Penei Sewell. I don't think there's a quarterback there at 4 because I think Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who did declare today, are both can be taken in the top 3. And you know, you said receiver, got Julio Jones, got Calvin Ridley. The next big need I see is tight end, and this might be a big reach, but Kyle Pitts catching passes from Matt Ryan is
and listen,
electric.
You said that. I'm going to bring it back because you say that tight end, the guy is not a typical tight end. Like he's not.
No, he's not. He's not.
Like
he's not your traditional tight
end. He can line up in the slot. So I thought I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you traded back to like 8 or 9,
that really that's what if Sewell goes in the top 3, you trade back if you're Atlanta. And looking on the defensive side of the ball, there's really only one player that I think you go top 10 with, and that's in any spot 4 or whatever, and that's Patrick Surtain at corner.
Wow.
They took a corner last year, and A.J. Terrell. To me, Surtain's the best corner in the draft. I know Caleb Farley's getting a lot of love, but he opted out this year at Virginia Tech, so he hasn't played. But I love Patrick Surtain. I think he's NFL ready. I think he's going to be a stud at cornerback.
I'll ask you this real quick. A lot of, and I don't know if this is what Ralph was about, but Micah Parsons has been really a big option. He's an outside linebacker.
He opted out as well.
He
opted out as well.
He's a weird schematic fit.
And at 4, I think that's reaching for him.
So I'm comfortable with Atlanta taking Sewell. It's not the sexy pick, and let's be honest, it's not a sexy pick. But Atlanta has skill players. There's no doubt about it, and you can find a running back anywhere. I mean, you really can. And they say that.
Yep.
I don't want Ito.
There's
Smith
a lot of running backs.
Them.
There's a lot of running backs that are hitting the market. You mentioned one, Kareem Hunt. Atlanta could make a run at Kareem Hunt.
Exactly.
I think Gus Edwards at Baltimore is set to be a free agent. He's another guy, and he's more a physical bruiser, similar to Henry. So he might fit better in what Arthur Smith wants to do. There's some good running backs hitting the market.
Ralph, I want to throw it to you before we wrap up here as we approach the 9 o'clock hour. When you look at that number 4 pick, I know you're an offensive line kind of guy. You're a trenches kind of guy. Sewell wouldn't be the sexy pick, but it would help this team. It really would. It would shore up the offensive line and protect Matt Ryan, he's not getting any younger and he's not getting any more athletic.
Yeah, I like the offensive line picks always. I mean, sometimes when you look at a pick and you say, "Oh, we took an offensive tackle at number 1 or number 2," you're one of those fans who doesn't really understand football. I'm not calling anyone out. But I'm talking about you know who I'm talking about. People who why would we go get an offensive tackle at this high of a pick? We could have gotten so and so. Well, you have so and so on your team. You just don't know about them. Jake Matthews a few years ago. We took Jake Matthews at I don't remember what pick it was. It was a high pick. Top 10 pick. And a lot of people were mad about it because they didn't know, okay, why would we not get –
And he's been a franchise cornerstone left tackle.
Exactly. He's had some rough patches in his career. I mean, he's had some battles with injuries and he's got beat a few times, but he's learned from it. He's gotten better. And like you said, he can move the left guard. He could be that guy right there, that veteran starter on the line next to Sewell if they take Sewell at 4. But then – another guy I've been thinking about all day. I know he got injured at the end of the year, but a second, third round pick if he's still available because of the injury is Dickerson, Landon Dickerson from Alabama at center. Alex Max, he ain't getting any younger either. Dickerson is one of those guys. He's gonna come in your program and he's just gonna be a fire starter.
He's a winner.
Yeah, he's a winner, but he loves the game.
Yeah, Ralph, you like his little dance moves. I think that's what you like.
No, I really like what at the end of that championship game when Saban let him go out there and snap the ball in the game. That got me a little bit. That was awesome to see, and that's why you play the game for that reason.
Just want to throw this
I love that.
We end the show. We're ending the show. Plant Boy had no receptions. Unless that's a little joke. I love Drew Brees. Can't stand the Saints. But listen, folks, we appreciate you all watching. We appreciate you listening. We're here for another great week. We're going to be back live Wednesday, regularly scheduled time, 4 p.m. Eastern here on Facebook Live, Crowded Booth. You can find us all there. Sign up today, crowdedbooth.com. Hey, we have some.
Hey, I also want to plug the Mailbag Monday. We didn't get a ton of questions. Released Mailbag Monday today.
Well, listen, I want to say this.
What happened?
Because I scheduled that, and I forgot to go back and edit and add the questions.
So it's fault.
So that's on me. That'll be for next week. We're going to put that in because I looked today and I was like, oh man, that came out today, didn't I? Forgot to edit that and put the questions in we got. But listen, anyways, we appreciate you watching. Slant Boy was in full effect. It's a ton of fun. Go back. Crybaby of the year, Mr. Michael Thomas. But listen, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. Wherever you are joining the Crowded Booth. You're part of the family. We're excited to have you on. We have some great stuff coming out on thecrowdedbooth.com as well, including some recruits announcing some commitments, which will be exciting. We have some great interviews. We have some maybe some update on some Auburn stuff. Another look at Georgia, what they're able to do. Hey, a Knoxville area radio host called out Kirby Smart and Georgia and said, hey, you're next. Meaning there may be some allegations coming. Don't want to spread the rumors. Don't want to say it. New AD Josh Brooks for Georgia said, we're not commenting on that. We don't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Hey, every school does it. Every school does it. It's just a matter if you get caught. But listen, we appreciate you watching the Crowded Booth. It's been an hour-long, action-filled show. We appreciate the comments. Share it, share it, share it. That's the way that we are to be able to see and continue to bring you this great content. For Ralph, for Will, for myself, thank you for joining the booth tonight. It's been the Crowded Booth Live. And make sure, folks, Will, what is it? What is it?
Keep your stick on the ice.